Civil War. I think we're going to pretty much end it. Hellfire and the Fall of Empire. We are playing a solo wargaming campaign. This is originally designed to generate tabletop scenarios for Hellfire, generic 1 to 300 SF games. They bolt together, man, like peanut butter and jelly, like salt and vinegar, like, all the good stuff, like ebony and ivory, living together in perfect harmony. Except this isn't perfect harmony because we have to do a couple of battles. As you know, heading into the year of our Lord 2953, the Hippopolitans, the Hippos, the kingdom of Hippos has been cut free, cut loose by the Empire. And after a string of disasters, suffered an additional disaster in the form of civil war. The uncle of the current ruler, Wargamius III, tried to seize power. He did pretty well at the outset. He managed to take 6 of the cities, but he has been slowly pushed back. And this year, with just the Wheelian supremacy showing up and begging for scraps, hey, pay us money, we'll go away. We don't have to worry about any barbarians. That's nice. It means that the loyalists, with all of their big money, they had a huge war chest. And unfortunately, because they weren't able to get there, in retrospect, I should have done a little mini game. How much of the wealth of the kingdom was the usurper able to take? He did take Hippos, but just for the sake of keeping things rolling, and just for the sake of, I didn't think of it, to be honest with you. I just had the loyalists; they had all the money, and the rebels. That's pretty typical, right? Part of the reason that rebels rebel is that they want some of that sweet, sweet lucre, despite all their protests to the contrary about the nobility of the human spirit, and being endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. No taxes. It's all about the Benjamins. We know that. It was even about the Benjamins for the guy we call Benjamins. We named them after. At the start of the year, the rebels had only controlled the cities along the Maka River and Canatha. Canatha was the seat of the power. The King Wargamius the Third. I didn't even answer. I think he's the third. He might be the fourth. Oh, he's the third. I did check. Okay. After a full week, I finally have the answer. He's the third in the line of the Wargamius family tree. I don't know what you call it. Anyway, point is, we're going to cut the head off of the rebellion by taking Canatha. This was the seat. It's called the Canathan Regency, after all. And if we can take that with Operation Choppy Loppy, then that will be good. And maybe we capture the usurper and just put an end to things. The Hippos, there is a chance. There's a chance that either of these cities surrender immediately. Let's look that up. I'll show you the orders of battle should that fail. Taking a city. The force will move to the nearest city of Decapolis and attempt to take it. Roll a d10. The city will just surrender on a roll of a 10. Unless your taxes are high. And this is why I always leave the taxes low. First of all, I'm a don't tread on me kind of guy. I supported the Whiskey Rebellion, which, don't worry about it. So, the city, Hippos isn't, and then Canatha's not either, which might have changed things a little bit. As it is, because they're broke and don't have a whole lot of money, all that the rebellion is going to be able to muster is a couple of company of infantry to defend Hippos. Now, they do have one aircraft left. The Empire left the planes behind, and the pilots have been loyal to the usurper. He made them big promises that he's not going to be able to deliver on. So this is going to be a battalion of regular infantry. That is 3 companies plus a company of heavy tanks. They have a support team. They got a recovery team. They have a mobile army surgical hospital. Oh, Little Allen, all the action there for you. And then they do have a medical. Yeah, that's the medical team, rather. So we have a support battalion for recovering any, tanks that get blowed up real good. So 3v1 is going to be the aircraft. Now, the way aircraft work in this game, you have to declare, are they going to be ground attack aircraft, or are they going to be maintaining air superiority? And so what you can do is you can say, look, it's 1 plane versus 3. So as a little mini game to start things off, I'm going to roll. We're going to go ahead and we're going to say, look, I'm going to roll 1 yellow dice for the 1 plane and for the usurper's forces. And the loyals say, I really want to win this. I'm going to roll 2 dice. And we're going to see what happens. We're going to see who performs better than the other. And so with a 1 for the loyal, they're cut off. They don't have a lot of resources. That plane is going to be shot down and won't have an effect in the battle. This means that the 2 companies of militia, there they are are going to be going up against. Oh, you know what I could do here? You guys have seen me. I've been playing. Look at that. I got some special dice. These are my Bladestorm dice. For those of you that are loyal fans of the show and don't miss an episode, you're my favorite fans of all. These are going to be the two companies of the usurpers, and then I've got 3 companies for Hippos, and I have a company of tanks, which will lend their support. And what you can do here, we've played around with this SCRUD, simple combat resolution using dice. These guys are basic militia, so they're going to be rolling at a -1. These guys are professionals. They're going to be rolling at, hey, I'm pretty cool. And then I'm going to add in a die for the tanks. And that's really, but then we also have aircraft support. So the aircraft support means that I can lend a +1 to whichever die I want. And because I had 2 planes doing air superiority, by the time they land and they're like F-35 all-purpose fighters, terrible at everything, but at least they can do a little bit of it. So that means that by the time they land and get refit and then the right round attack weapons put on, battle's going to be over. So we only get an additional +1 for that aircraft team. But we do get 4 dice to his 2 dice. We're going to roll them, line them up highest to lowest, and then we'll add that +1. So as you can see, our militia are at -1. So this will be a 4, remember, because it's -1, versus 6. And so these guys are going to lose. And then we have, we have a 7 versus 4. And then we have a 5 versus 2. And so those are just completely dominated, right? Like we didn't even tie. We're just the battle's going to be over quicker than you realize. And that's just a nice, easy way here in about 2 minutes to figure out who's going to win this battle. Now we do have a couple of other guys, and because, we really, even if we line these up lowest to highest, we would still be dominating in this battle. So that being the case, I'm not going to worry about replacing losses. We do have our MASH unit, so we're going to be just fine. In this case, I have 3 companies of militia and 1 artillery. Now, I do have an electronic countermeasure battery, so those 2 units are going to balance out. We're going to hit the artillery. Now, what I will do, though, is roll the black die for the Imperial artillery and the white die for the electronic countermeasure battery. And so what's going to happen here is if the white die can double up the black die, this guy is destroyed. And that's going to take it off the roster. We're not going to be able to use it for the rest of the campaign. And that's really the only reason I'm doing this, because it's just kind of adding to the confusion. And as you can see, that is exactly what happened. So the artillery is a casualty. And I think maybe that's the smart way to play this game, that when you do have that double up, that's where the bad things happen. Now, the ECM isn't going to play any more effect. I am going to have 3 companies of regular infantry plus a tank, and they are going to be going up against, here we go. I've got 3 black D6s. I know one of them is dots. The rest are numbers. Sorry about that. So I've got 4 dice versus 3 dice, and we're going to line them up high to low. These 3 dice are at -1, but if we can get a single win against the other guy, then we're going to be doing some casualties. So we roll them all, and we line them up. So that is a 5, 3, and a 1. And then our highest over here are going to be a 6, 4, and a 4, which means our tanks were the difference, right? This becomes a mulligan. Now, I could have said, well, I'm going to use my tanks to add a +1 to any given die, and that gives us a tie down here, which means we could fight another battle. As it is, this is going to be a pushback, pushback, and pushback. And if you wanted to kind of extend the episode a little bit, if you wanted to go into a second round of combat, you could say these 3, this is a win, and a tie. So I'm going to roll again, and this time the 2 highest dice are going to be at -2 to the die roll because they are depleted of supplies. And so we roll again, and we're at a 4, 1, and a 0. Lining them up high to low, we get a 6. So that's another pushback. This is a casualty. So we take that one out, and we have another casualty. So it's just 1 die against the 4. And that 1 die is going to be at because it was a push. It's just going to be at the same -2 because we're running out of supplies. I get a pair of, just the 1 6, right? The tanks make the difference. The tanks are going to drive them from the field. And as it is, we are going to be able to win this battle in fairly short order. That is not a surprise. let's be honest here. When you've got just a couple of companies of freshly called militia, they are badly undermanned, badly undertrained, not very well equipped. And, as loyal though they may be, they're just not going to be able to do a whole lot to procure victory. So I am going to say, look, the artillery is out, the plane is out, and if we turn our attention to the overall roster that we have for our military, that means that this aircraft squadron is gone and the battery of artillery is gone. And, that means the only guys that are left are the support battalion, and we're going to disband those guys as well. So moving into 2954, Canatha and Hippos have fallen. It's just Scythopolis and Pella. Bear in mind, we haven't actually liberated these yet. We still need to get some armies in there, and we'll do that in 2954. But it's going to depend a lot on what kind of barbarian hordes are coming through here. Not only that, we still are not going to be able to take advantage of the income. That is another 15 kilocredits that would have come in handy. That's 30,000 kilocredits. It's going to be hard, but at least our loyalists don't have to pay for those imperial forces anymore. They have essentially disbanded. We've maybe exiled them for choosing the losing side. We're moderates here. They chose the losing side in the Civil War. They just have to go back to the Kaisan Empire and live with the shame of not only choosing the losing side in the Civil War, but also not being able to effect the victory of the guy, right? Boo-hoo. All of that means when we turn the calendar over to the new year, 2954, the loyalists will now have a total population of 73, barring a reduction in the population. Remember, they now have 2, 4, 6, 8 chances to lose 1 or 2 population, but they'll be at least able, they should, barring a miracle, they'll be able to break even on their military. Their military will still cost them 128,000. For the year, they may be able to add to their reserve or have some money to buy off some of the invaders. Remember that I think next year is when, the Popular Front down over here, they're going to be available. They may show up in this year. The rebels are going to be down to just 2 cities, Scythopolis and Pella. They have 30,000 kilocredits with, I think the reserve was like 300, but I'm going to say, I'm not going to worry about that because it was probably in Canatha, the former seat. Which does bring us to an interesting question. The usurper was in Canatha and directing its final defense. We will use this 30 kilocredits to pay for militia for the defense of Scythopolis and Pella. The governments of these 2 cities are very worried they're going to wind up on the chopping block. Remember that this was called Operation Choppy Loppy. Wargamius, having been stabbed in the back, is not likely to be kind to those who stabbed him, and so they're going to hold out as best they can. They may be able to use that money to hire the Machins to defend them. I don't know, but they do have that because, again, they don't have any military to speak of. The rebellion has been thoroughly crushed, and even those imperial... sorry about the bump there. Even those imperial forces that were here, they're out of the picture. But we need to figure out, does the usurper make it out of Canatha alive? And the question is, given how thorough the trashing was, they're probably not going to make it. He's probably going to get captured. So we need to put some odds together to figure out whether or not he escapes. And if he escapes, does he wind up in Pella or Scythopolis? He may actually say, I'm going to spend a good chunk of this money on some, well, although 30,000, what does it cost? It costs like 15... Each company, I might have overspent last year. Now that on those defenses, now that I think about it, he may be able to recruit a couple. Yeah, the monthly cost, so it's 1,500. That's what it is. Yeah, these guys were pretty expensive. I feel like I cheated them somehow. Let's take a look at who they had. They had, see, that was 6,000. Oh, that's 1,500. That's the annual cost. Oh, 150 for each home defense unit. It's 1,500 on the year. And, I think maybe they should have a little bit more money left over after last year. It's not too late to fix this. They did have energy weapons. They had 66,000 kilocredits, and those, I probably should have had much bigger militia force. The 6,000, yeah, I think I undercharged them. But I'm trying to wrap up this Civil War because we've seen how it works, and I really want to get back into the like full scale invasions. There's a very good chance that one of these barbarian hordes will launch an all out invasion. Peer forces, we're going to have to spend a huge chunk of money. And it may not seem like it. It may feel we've been doing this for a long time, like things aren't changing, but our reserves, our action economy is predicated upon this number right here. We spent 2 or 3 years building up a reserve of like 250,000, and now we're down to about 140, and we're going to lose out on this as well. It does get expensive. We've been fortunate with the barbarians kind of hanging back and letting themselves be paid off. But enough jibber jabber. Let's go. Let's figure out what happens down here in Canatha. It's a population of 7. It's not a huge city. So altogether, what I would normally do is say, look, we're going to call it a 50-50. I don't know what it is, and I don't have a strong preference either way. So we'll call it a 50% chance. But given how badly the battle went, we're going to give it a plus 20% that he gets caught. So now there's a 70% chance he gets caught. It's a small town. So I'm going to give it another 10%, 80% chance. And he is well known, but it is industrial. So we'll kind of knock 5 off, 75%. And he does have the mountains here. He can slip into these. So we'll call it 65%. If he had aircraft, I might give him a little bit more opportunity. But he's got a long way to go to get to safety. And he's got to get through Puka and the Wheelian supremacy. Maybe that's what happens to the last of the financial reserve. He takes it with him. So given all of those, I think 80% is probably a really good number. If I can roll higher than 80, he escapes to Pella to direct the defense. He does not. He gets captured. And that means that these guys, with their leader gone, the only reason they have to fight is to avoid the chopping block. Does that make them fight harder? Well, the guys who are in charge, they're not the ones fighting. It's the guys in the trenches. They're going to start filtering out. They're going to start heading home. They don't want any of this. This is a small financial town out here in Pella. And I do have a picture of Pella that I put together. I hope I remember to show it here. At least what my Pella looks like. It looks a lot like the Pella of my world. Funny how that works out, isn't it? Scythopolis, it's an industrial town on the river. Probably has a couple of, couple of those hydroelectric dams. This is the far-flung future where they understand that those things are worthwhile. They've solved the engineering. Probably some fish ladders, so you can keep getting free energy from the river. But that's kind of where we're at right now. The usurper is captured. I'll put that note down here on my battle. Operation Choppy Loppy. The usurper has been captured. And we may just go ahead and send him sent into exile. We're going to lock him up on the island of Elba. That always works out great for the jailers, doesn't it? Sent into exile, and he is no longer a concern of ours. What's the worst thing that could happen if we did that? So we have, again, we got our 128,000 a year. Yeah, boy, I really cheated them. We probably could have had a whole lot more companies of infantry. It might have taken another year or two to really free up the rebellious towns. And again, we do have that like 10% chance that these guys just surrender without a fight. So that might save us a little bit of trouble moving on as well. A really interesting game. A lot of interesting things going on here. It does, it generates scenarios that are as balanced as you want them to be. You can just take a look at the situation and figure out how much money do I have to spend to make this a fair fight. And when you actually put it on the table using the Hellfire rules, it'll make for a more interesting scenario. And of course, you could always enlist some friends. Hey, I need to figure out this scenario. Here's the two forces. Can you run these guys and I'll run those guys? And any friend worth his salt would be more than happy to do that for you. We ran a whole campaign called Sneedville, where my good buddies, by which I mean you, dear viewer, did me the kindness of running every battle. All I got to do was this and shove armies around. I took some polls, the viewers helped decide where armies went. But for the most part, they ran all the battles, and it was a delightful experience. If you ever have an opportunity to run a scenario for a friend's ongoing campaign, be a bro, be a solid guy, be a winner, and take them up on the offer, because it's one great way to show the spirit of goodwill and kindness. And it's a good way to add to the common good. It makes the world a little smaller, makes the hobby a little smaller. And, it's just a nice thing to do. Just give it a shot sometime. Run a scenario for a friend. Run the opposition for a friend. Just because you're going up against each other doesn't mean that you don't like each other. Until next time, guys, I'm praying for you.